A warm welcome to Podcast for Business. Podcast for Business is all about helping businesses share their knowledge, passion, expertise, news of events, workshops and seminars. Podcast for Business is brought to you in partnership with Network B2B, structured networking in a relaxed environment. For more information about a group near you, visit networkb2b.co.uk. Thank you to this week's sponsor, Premier Homes in Spain. If you're looking for your own home in Spain, check out premierhomesinspain.com. All interviews featured in Podcast for Business, first featured in the Business Hour podcast. The Business Hour podcast brings you feel-good music as well to help you through your week. For more information, visit podcastforbusiness.co.uk. Sit back and enjoy Podcast for Business. Now, here's a great question for you. What does your telephone message say about your company? Now, what I mean is when somebody rings you and the phone is unable to be answered, what does that message that's on the phone say about your business? Does it sound professional? Well, in today's podcast, I talk with Matthew Butler from the Production House. One of the things that Matthew's company does is help people have a really professional telephone message. And when you listen to the interview with Matthew, he shares some great information about the big difference a professional telephone message makes. Sit back and enjoy today's podcast as I talk to Matthew Butler from the Production House.
Like to share news about your business, event, seminar or workshop? Simply email steve@stevetwynham.com.
You're listening to Podcast for Business with me, Steve Twynham. It's always great to meet some really interesting people for them to share their knowledge, passion and expertise with the listeners of Podcast for Business. And I'm joined today by Matthew Butler from the Production House. How are you, Matthew?
I'm very good, thanks, Steve.
Good to see you, good to see you. Now, before we go on and talk about the really key thing we want to talk about today, just give me a little bit of an intro and a listener intro into what the Production House is all about.
So the Production House is basically a company which provides audio. So that could be music you hear, messages you hear on the radio, jingles, advertisements on the telly, anything basically which has some audio to it. So you might have heard some of our work which you didn't even think was made by us. Right,
okay. So you're the responsible company then that does these voiceover things for people for the radio and things like that?
That's right, yeah. So people who sort of try to sound like you and I, but selling you a message or a product. The ones that get you to pay and spend money.
And spend some money. And you also do what they call in the industry the station idents. So when people are tuned in and you hear a radio station being announced, it's your company that gets involved in that.
Yeah, with quite a few sort of call them jingles, I think you might know them as, the things that you sing along to and hear.
Great stuff. So that's a little bit of background. So today we're going to be talking about that. Let me ask the listener a minute, just to think this for a minute. They ring a company up, okay, and nobody answers the phone, and they get put on hold or whatever. Some things that you do, you help with telephone messaging and increasing the fact that people who are actually put on hold go on to actually buy more.
Yeah, so if you think about it, you have someone ringing your company and for whatever reason, you've got to put them on hold. You can't answer the phone in time or you've got to check some details out. And that person is sat the other end of the phone listening to nothing, just dead air. But with a telephone message professionally recorded with music in the background, you can actually promote your business and service directly to that person. So, in effect, you are sort of guaranteeing your message is heard by your audience.
So is that one or two things, that, Matthew? Do you do the bit where, press 1, press 2, press 3? Can you do that voice thing as well?
Yeah, so we do that as well. That's a little bit more complicated. That requires a special sort of handset. So depending upon how your company works, their telephones, we can offer advice and support on that as well. If you like something like that, we can sort that out. But the more simpler sort of concept which we do is the voicemail, which just tells people who's ringing your company that you're busy and stay on the line. And
And a nice piece of music.
And a nice piece of music.
Now, that's interesting because, you know, is it important then? I'm just thinking now, is it important, depending on what type of company you're ringing, I guess the music really needs to fit the company because people want to listen in and don't want to feel agitated, I guess.
That's it. And it's also important, something that we're really conscious of is using music which is sort of appropriate for the industry. It's all about selecting a piece of music which your typical customer will sort of enjoy or not mind. So we do quite a lot of work into the actual music that we select for a certain business. We don't sort of have 5 music tracks which are, you know, for every business out there, for like Joe's Plumbing and then real estate. You know, there's also sort of an element of, I guess, expectation of how a business needs to look. And this is where we sort of help with the actual branding, because you might think that branding is just like a logo or something you see on the side of a car. Well, audio branding is and should be treated the same as something you see. So when you're ringing a business and you just hear like Janet in the office speaking into a dictaphone saying, "Oh, sorry, we're busy at the moment, stay on the line," it gives an impression of the business which in some cases that might be the case. It might be sort of a bit of a poorly run and managed business, but in other instances it's sort of giving the impression that the business isn't as professional as it actually is, and puts people off. So this small sort of, you could say, marketing tool is sort of really increasing your marketing values.
And it's an important part, actually, coming back to what you were saying there about the important part of the value. So I guess you would sit down with a client and go through these things. Maybe you meet them or talk over the phone with them?
Yeah, so it's always nice to sort of speak to clients to hear what they want, but I always advise in sort of any sort of branding scenario, always keep it simple, because you can have this telephone message. You can have a telephone message which is 3, 4 or 5 minutes long, but to start with, is it likely that your customers are going to be on the phone for 5 or 10 minutes? Well, maybe they are, but remember, if you're chucking a load of messages at them, then they're only going to remember one.
Right, okay.
If any.
Yeah.
So it's sort of important to know what is it that you would like to tell your customers, your clients about. Maybe there's a new service you've got or something you're really wanting to push at the moment.
So there's a bit of both. There's some nice music that people feel comfortable listening to, and there's an opportunity to inform people about a new product that's coming and things like that. So it's not just as simple as just going, you're on a hold and a nice bit of music. That's
right. So it's not just it's simply not just a case of getting someone to record some words. In fact, the most effective voicemails are the ones where people don't actually know they're on hold. So yeah, they'll know they are on hold because they've been told that they're on hold. But as they're sort of on hold, their mind is taken away from the fact that, you know, the call's not getting answered or getting responded to. They're actually listening to something that is of interest. The sales message that you have in these telephone messages, they don't even sort of need to sort of really promote the company. They could be just like a statistic or fact,
right? Okay.
Tagged on the end. You know, we can help you with this,
right?
And it really gets people thinking. So actually, the ones which are more engaging are usually the ones which are a lot more effective.
So it's really being informative rather than a selling message, then, isn't it?
That's it, and it's also the sort of the idea that the voice who is saying it, the voiceover, is going to sound really respectful. That there's someone who, even without meeting them and only of hearing them every few seconds, combined with the music, they're sort of quite trustworthy.
You know what got in my mind? It's that even though that's on a phone and it's a message there, it's that opportunity for the company to build rapport with its customer, isn't it?
That's it, and it's sort of a more professional way than to say, "Oh, we can't speak to you at the moment."
Yes.
Or just leave them
hanging there in
midair.
On
the phone. Yeah.
Okay. So, Matthew, you're based up here in Yorkshire, but I guess the work you do, you can work anywhere, can't you? Any company in the world would be interested in this.
Anyone who has a phone would be interested in this. Even if you're self-employed, you're sort of a one-man band operation, there are ways you can have it put onto your mobile phone. There's providers if you have a regular landline. All you need is a phone, and if you've got a phone line which your customers can ring you on, then this is something which I would say you would benefit from.
Okay, so in terms of the process then, well, that would be a conversation with yourself, and then you would go away and find a suitable voiceover artist for it, or whatever they want.
That's it. So I have a couple of male and female voiceovers who were really sort of focused on that brand image. So it's someone professional, might be someone you've heard who's done a professional advert for a TV or on the radio. So it's not going to be like some amateur, and that's really important because we are really focused on the brand values of this. It's not just a nice little sales tool, it's actually branding your business through the telephone, and because of that you're hopefully going to be perceived as a much more professional company. So that's sort of where we'll start from. We'll start from what you'd like the message to be heard. What is your sort of call to action? Do you want people to ask the telephone operator about the service? And then we'll look at how you want that to be sort of presented. Are you quite a young and sort of quirky brand, or are you more professional, more sort of real estate kind of business?
A mature brand.
Mature brand.
Let's put it that way. Are you a mature brand and you want something a little bit more, more of a mature voice?
Yeah.
And the good news is, whatever you want, you can provide.
Yep.
Okay. So, how can people get in touch with you then?
Well, you can drop me a line on the Production House UK.com. That is the website, or you can send me an email. It is Matthew with 2 T's at theproductionhouseuk.com, and you can find me on LinkedIn as well. Just search for Matthew Butler.
And we must say, Matthew, as well, for people listening to this, who you may have this feeling as you listen to this, or thinking in your head that this is going to be really mega expensive. It's competitive.
It is. It's not just about compromising the price for cheap, because you can pay cheap things all the time. You get what you pay for, and I think that is the case here. But it's really competitive. The prices start at £40, which you might just be sat there now thinking, wow, I thought it'd be 600, 700, 800. Well, it can be, but again,
it's what you want.
It's what you want. If you want like 500 different messages and 60 different options to transfer to different colleagues, then that'll cost a bit more, but its starting point is £40.
Do you know what? I spend more on coffee than that in a week.
And just think of the people, 16% of people who've been on hold have gone on to buy a product or service promoted in an on-hold voice message.
So there you go. Look, from that return on investment, then it could be incredible.
It could.
Okay. So, Matthew, just give me that contact details again.
So it's Matthew at theproductionhouseuk.com.
Brilliant. Thanks for joining us today on Podcast for Business.
Cheers, Steve.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this Podcast for Business. If you would like to feature your business in Podcast for Business and the Business Hour podcast, I would love to hear from you. Simply email steve@stevetwynham.com. The Business Hour podcast is produced and presented by Steve Twynham. Copyright applies.